Hi, everyone. This week for Tuesdays with Miss Tampa, I have none other than Ericka Dunlap. She was Miss America 2004. If you didn't know, she was our second Miss Florida to become Miss America. It is a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so to start us off, can you share a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you're doing these days?
Sure thing. So I am from Orlando, Florida, and I currently live in Orlando. I lived in Nashville for about 5 years, and I was pursuing music at the time. So that's like it's Music City, so that's the place that you have to be. But before Miss America, I started doing pageants when I was 6 years old. So I had always had in my mind's eye that I wanted to one day hopefully become Miss Florida and then go on to be Miss America, or at least compete for Miss America. And so just seeing that dream come to fruition was a major accomplishment, not only for myself, but also for my family. I currently live in Orlando, as I mentioned, and I have been very fortunate to have a few businesses. One of them is a communications company, and I'm now moving into my family business, which is construction-based business in roofing specifically. So, yeah, I have some some really um, unique, uh, different types of things that I've done with my life, but fortunately, I've been able to live with no regrets. And so, yeah, I try to just tackle the things that come at me one at a time and go from there.
Love that. So, with your journey through Miss America, can you share a little bit about things you learned? How many times did you compete for Miss Florida, Miss America? And what do you think made you win Miss America at the end of the day?
So I competed 3 times at Miss Florida, and my third time was a charm, and that's when I won and went on to win Miss America about 2 months later. So I was only Miss Florida for a very short amount of time because the competition was in July, and then Miss America was in well, the competition was in the end of June, and then Miss America's in September. And so, I think what helped me to win was I just had a tenacity that last year that was just unbeatable. To be honest, I really dug deep into who I wanted to portray myself as, and I who I really wanted the judges to see. And I knew myself authentically, and I think that's really what helped me to shine through and make it to the next level. Because before winning, I had made it to top 10 for 2 years, and so my goal third year was at least to make it to top five. But going all the way and hearing fourth runner up called and it wasn't me, and third and second, and then standing there and it's me, and the first runner up, it's like, wow, this actually, when you really put your all into something, it always comes back with a great return for you. You may not win. And I tell young ladies that all the time, even if you put 150% in, you may not win, but that doesn't mean that you weren't really still a winner. Just the fact that you put all that great effort in helps you to take yourself to that next level, and it helps you to be successful for the next time.
Absolutely. And I love your crowning moment. Your Miss America crowning moment is one of the best that I've ever seen. It's so happy. You seem so excited. What,
Yes, I
I'm sure, what are some of the things you gained as Miss America, or some of your highlights from your year?
Well, I was able to travel to 37 countries, which was fun. 37 states. I'm sorry. I'd like to be going to 37 countries, but I got to travel all over the country, and it was just phenomenal to get to see different places that I had only read about before. I saw snow for the first time. I'm a true Floridian. I have a family that lives in northern states and in western states, but it just didn't really make sense for us to travel to the snow when we could ride our bikes and roller skate and rollerblade and do everything outside on Christmas Day. So I never experienced snow before. So just little things like that was just phenomenal. And the people that I got a chance to meet from all over the country was just amazing. I was also able to travel to Kuwait that year, which was my first trip abroad. And I went there to entertain the soldiers and the servicemen and women. And it was just so amazing to be with people who were giving up so much for my life, and being able to just honor them in some way. I was there for Thanksgiving, so I served them Thanksgiving dinner, and it was just one of the most touching moments of my life.
That's incredible. And speaking about post Miss America, you recently ran for office in Orlando. My social impact is really involved in encouraging more young women to pursue leadership opportunities and positions. What is something you learned throughout that journey, and what ignited you to run for office?
Well, I knew that I wanted to make significant changes, and I knew that because I was someone of influence in my community, but beyond the community, I have relationships with people that are from just every walk of life, with regardless as to whether or not they're from Orlando or otherwise. And so I knew that with that great responsibility, I had an accountability to the community that helped to raise me and helped to make me a success. And that was the reason why I decided to run for office. And in running for office, I felt that it was important for me to use all of my skills and all of the tools that have helped me to be at the top of my game, to also make sure that my community had those same opportunities. And so I didn't win, but in going through the process, I definitely want a great perspective on how politics really works. Um, they will say over and over that politics is local. And so if you start at that local level, and you just kind of expand and broaden your horizons from there, you really have to start where it all really begins, is at the local level, just like in pageants. And so, quite frankly, it was it was all of the emotions. It was frustrating. It was exciting. Um, it was the hardest thing that I'd ever endeavored. Miss America was definitely hard, but politics was even more jarring, because there was no time for me personally. My personal life was just completely put on hold. And fortunately, I had an amazing team that was able to help me to make it to. I was the first. I was the top loser, if you will. There were 7 people in my race, which was a lot of people. And so I came in second to the incumbent, which it gave me a lot of hope in knowing that at least people saw my value, and they were able to see that I was someone who could progress our community forward.
Well, I do want to thank you just for running in the first place, because it is really important that we see more women running and pursuing leadership opportunities, whether they win or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I urge you, in your influence of telling young women how important it is to pursue leadership. And leadership doesn't only come in politics, but it is extremely important that our voices are heard, and that the things that are important to us are taken into account and they're not overlooked. So I always encourage young women, especially of your age group, to be sure to just stay focused on what is really happening in the community around you on a local level, and also be aware of what's happening statewide and how does that impact your community, so that you're able to really lend the best and most powerful voice you can.
That's really important. And speaking about creating change in our communities, the world is facing some really hard times, and there is a lot of pain and anger. If you had a message for America to come together, what do you tell people?
I think right now, because of the hurt that has been ongoing especially for communities of color, and particularly for Black community, for so long, for literally 400 years, there is a big old Band-Aid that has been ripped off. And we're seeing the effects of just years and years of just kind of throwing things under the rug and not really taking care of the people who need the most care. And with that, sometimes we just have to wait it out. Sometimes it's just a process. But I would say that as soon as possible, if the leaders who are currently in office, because it all really boils down to legislation and to policy. And so if those policies are reviewed with a very keen eye, and we're able to get some consensus from those who are activists, who are on the front line, who have very valid concerns. We need to be listening to them, and we also need to be listening to our very localized community leaders, people from various neighborhoods. You know, they know what's going on in their neighborhood, and so it's important for leaders to be listening to people of all concern and all levels of concern. Even listening to kids. I mean, our children are being so deeply impacted by what they're seeing, and their innocence is really being broken right in front of our eyes. Social media has has been a major unveiling of the realities of the world that we live in. And so we have to listen to all of the stakeholders involved, if you will, so that we can get to another level of just order and decency, because it's a little crazy right now. So we've got a lot of work to get done. And that, again, is another reason why young women, we've got to pay attention to what's happening. We've got to form opinions. You know, taking this back to pageantry, that's one of the things that kind of helped me to do really well, is that I started listening to the opposing side of my views, so that I could form a really concise opinion, regardless of what my parents told me, regardless of what I just conjured in my mind. I started listening to the other side of things, and it helped me to really create a formidable opinion. So I would suggest that as well. We need to be listening to both sides of the argument so that we can get somewhere.
I think that is incredible advice. I know one time I was told that communication is not only speaking, but it's really about listening, and especially
Absolutely.
the other side. That's great advice. And the last question I wanted to ask you is that as Miss America embarks on its 100th year anniversary, what does this anniversary mean to you? And do you think Miss America is still relevant in today's society?
Well, fortunately, because of platforms like this one, you know, Tuesdays with Miss Tampa, I think that just shows how relevant Miss America still is. And thank you again for having an old Miss America on. But I fantastic that you know, we're still giving women an opportunity to have a voice, and that's what Miss America has always really been about. It did start as a swimsuit competition, but it was still a leader in giving young women scholarship opportunities where they didn't have them before. And so, you know, the first scholarship, I think, was a $3,000 prize. And so just imagine in the 20s and in the 30s, how long $3,000 could stretch for your education was huge. And so many women didn't have the opportunity to go to school because they lived in small towns, or perhaps because their parents couldn't afford to send them. And so just that springboard of being able to say that, you know, this competition is going to help you to be able to afford school and to forward your livelihood, that is huge. So Miss America is definitely still relevant because we are asking young women to take the time, which, you know, a lot of your peers don't do this. They don't take the time to develop a social impact initiative. They don't take the time to create a platform by which they can really delve into, become knowledgeable about, and be an advocate for. So I wish Miss America the very best for another 100 years, because I see, and it has touched my life so deeply and so greatly. I hope it continues to shine that same light for other women in the future.
Well, the last thing is I wanted to see how people can follow you on social media and stay updated with the incredible things you are doing in your community.
Well, thank you so much. So my handle is at Ericka Dunlap. And you can find me on basically everything, Facebook and Instagram. I kept it pretty simple. But yeah, at Ericka Dunlap. I don't tweet a whole lot. I just, you know, have a lot going on, so I just try to keep it to a minimum. But Facebook and Instagram is where I'm the most active. So I look forward to catching you guys on there, and you can see more about what's going on in my world.
Yes. Thank you again so much for being here and talking with me today. You are so inspiring and always stylish. Whenever I see you, you have the best wardrobe. So
Thank I love, and thank you so much again for taking the time to make this a reality, because you're using your voice and that's exactly what you should be doing. So best of luck to you.
I appreciate it.